I did this really weird thing where I started a YouTube channel. I created an introduction. I posted a few short form videos, and then I just dipped. I want to say that was unintentional, but to be completely honest with you, I just do better with short form content. And since TikTok didn't get taken down, I was posting there. But TikTok, while allowing longer videos, does not really work for people who want to make longer videos. So I'm going to put weekly reviews here. And I guess I'll just try and stay up to date, even though I would rather be reading and I have a full-time job. But I want to talk about these books too. So here's where we're at. Last week, it started June 15th. I read Sinners Anonymous, and I cannot pronounce this author's name, so I'm just going to not. I read Sinners Anonymous, and this was terrible. This should have been a DNF, but I persisted. I regret that. First of all, Rory was our female main character, and she was obnoxious. And I want to give a little bit of leeway, but I hate when characters are written to be quirky for the sake of being quirky, and Rory was written that way. She is in this terrible arranged marriage, marriage of convenience, but it's only convenient because she's trying to save this piece of land from being demolished, and her arranged husband, she's engaged to this man, is disgusting. I think he's in his 70s. It's gross. And the way she's written to be quirky is that instead of using swear words, she says bird names. So, oh swan, oh crow, oh flamingo. It doesn't stop. It was just constant, to the point that it was just like, okay, we get it. You don't swear. Shut the fuck up. But that's okay, because our MMC is just as bad in different ways. In fact, Angelo refers to Rory, mind you, in his mind, but he also speaks to other men and refers to Rory as a whore because she's marrying his uncle. He doesn't question why she's marrying his uncle. He doesn't think, why would this 20-something-year-old be marrying a 70-year-old? Clearly it's for his money. Like, really? Like, you can look at her. You can look at this weird little bird lover and know, even though she's dressed like a stripper because that's how her fiance wants her to dress. Like, just speak to her. And obviously you'll know that that's not the case. But anyways, he referred to her as a whore in his mind and when he spoke to other men pretty much throughout the entire book. It was just icky. The author also used the word gauge instead of gouge. Like, I want to gauge somebody's eyes out. I should have DNF'd it at that point. But again, I persisted. Continuing with Sunday, I also read Moments of Madness by T.L. Smith. And let me tell you, this book is the reason why I will never read another T.L. Smith book again. The dialogue and prose was pretty bad. Characters were kind of toxic. And to be honest with you, the only way I can really show you how bad this was is by giving you just a small snippet of the book. For just a little bit of reference, like for some context, Kalila is very obviously homeless. She's unkempt, she's unwashed, starving, and drunk. In fact, every time that Kyson, our main male character, has come across her, she has been actively drinking. It's just very apparent that she's homeless. Kyson comes into contact with her for a second time, and she is a little bit belligerent because he has essentially kidnapped her. She passed out drunk in front of him, and instead of just leaving her, he picks her up, throws her in the trunk of his car. She then wakes up while him and his brothers are killing someone, and she freaks out and takes off. Kyson chases after her. Anyways, they're confronting each other. Kyson says, "Go and shower. I bet your pussy stinks like rotten eggs." What type of man even says that to a woman? I shake my head at him. "You are such a pig, you know that?" I take a step back as he steps forward. He leans into me and I can smell him. He smells fresh, clean, with something that I can't quite put my finger on. "And you do stink," he whispers. He pulls back slightly as his hand moves between us. He pushes me and I miss a step on the ledge as I fall backward, landing in the water. The water being a river in a major metropolitan area. I promise you that water is not any cleaner than Kalila. It's not. The bottle drops from my hand and I scream as I hear him chuckle. Someone needed to clean that pussy. Respect the pussy. He calls as he walks off. I'm sorry. I regret to inform you, if you were interested in reading this, the prose and the dialogue do not get any better. It stays bad. This is just a poorly written, dark romance between two toxic people that just stay toxic. I really despise the trend of dark romance just being abusive men. And it's excused that they're abusive because it's a dark romance. I want, and maybe that's just me, but when I read dark romance, I want dark themes. I'm okay with a very dark plot, but I want that man to respect the woman. What's the point of having a man that disrespects you as a woman? That wraps up Sunday. On Saturday, I finished Storm Warning by Nellie Wilson. I was really enjoying this Twisters fanfic. A column came from two angles. One, they went from being bickering, kind of bitter rivals. They really did not get along. And then all of a sudden there was a sudden flip and they're professing their love. Now, they're professing their love while they're underneath a bridge trying to ride out a tornado that is directly over them. I understand that in that moment, maybe you will profess your love to your bitter rival. But they were serious and they persisted with that. And I wanted to be like, where did this come from? How did this relationship get built? We didn't really get that. Maybe that's me. This is a novella. My biggest issue, though, was with Julian, our main male character. He was consistently being talked to about Violet, our female main character, and a lot of the comments were very misogynistic. He was recognizing that Violet was being kept out of the conversation because she was a woman. People were telling him that she was only there to be the face, to be pretty, and shut the fuck up. And Julian didn't say anything. Julian didn't stand up for Violet. He just listened to that and was like, man, that's kind of fucked up, but didn't say anything. Are you kidding me? After that, I read Rebels and Queens by Kate Prada. I'm not a horse girl. I feel like maybe I missed out on this because I'm not a horse girl, but my biggest issues were the lack of editing, the grammar, and weird characters. Right off the bat, in the beginning, right after the dedication, we're given this little blurb from the author that says, hey, thank you for reading this through legal means. For those of you that read it through illegal means, essentially a curse on people who steal the content. I got it through KU, thankfully. The problem is that illegal was spelled ILLEAGLE. That is not how you spell illegal. And that was the major red flag that I just rose-colored glasses through. I continued reading. Within the first 7 pages, the words chonky and lil were used unironically. Writing didn't get any better. It did not get any better. It stayed very stilted. It stayed very cringe. It was not for me. That wrapped up Monday. On Tuesday, I finished Shades of Grey by Jasper Fforde. I liked the concept of this. I wanted to enjoy it more. The problem I had with it was that it was so aggressively British. It's like the only way I can describe it. I feel like anybody that's a fan of Doctor Who or the Benedict Cumberbatch iteration of Sherlock Holmes would enjoy this because it felt very cerebral. I don't usually have a problem with that. The problem was the tone was very British, and I don't enjoy that kind of humor. And that's kind of the direction that it was going throughout the story, was that kind of humor. It's just not for me. I like the concept though. People are basically sorted into a caste system based on how much colored vision they have. With the grays, people who have no colored vision at the bottom, violets being at the top. And then pretty much any color iteration in between. So we have oranges, greens, reds. Red is where our protagonist, Eddie, lands. The book didn't really have much of a plot for the first 200 pages. It was essentially world building for 200 pages. And that's great because this is, I guess, a series. I think the second book just came out in the past year or two, which works for how intricate this world is. But it doesn't work if you're looking for a book that you can maintain focus on very well. I did more of an immersive reading because when I have problems with books like this, I like to listen to the audiobook, which that worked out well enough for me. But again, it just didn't fit with my reading style. So that wrapped up Tuesday. On Wednesday, I read Sunlight by Devney Perry. And I'm not sure how Devney Perry does it. She always manages to pull me out of a potential reading slump. She creates characters that just have like a visceral feeling for me. Like they just feel real. Chemistry between our main characters, Sasha and Jax, was dynamic. When they were butting heads, it was fantastic. It was more of like a dislike to love, but it was one-sided. Sasha disliked Jax, but not necessarily for any reason other than she disliked the fact that she liked him and he was her boss. And she didn't want to get trapped in Montana because, to be honest with you, I agree. Winter sucks. But they definitely had like that golden retriever black cat dynamic, and it worked really well between the two of them. It was just a really fun time, like a really just kind of relaxing, not quite cozy, but cozy enough contemporary romance. And I just really appreciate that out of Devney Perry. On Wednesday, I also read My Secret Irish Baby by Sienna Blake. This took way too long to get through. And it was mostly because our MMC, Michael, was, you guessed it, garbage. When they first get together, Abby, our FMC, is basically backpacking across Europe. She's at the end of her finances in Ireland, and she gets caught stealing some food and alcohol and just trying to get by, basically, until she goes back to America. Michael catches her. They get drunk. They end up getting drunk together, kind of going on this like little cross-country adventure, having sex. Next morning, Michael has a little bit of a freak out before Abby wakes up. He leaves her 100 euros and a note saying for the bus and dips. Abby is pretty brokenhearted about it. They had a really good time. Like, it was kind of a love at first sight kind of situation for her. It was for Michael too, but he wasn't going to stand by and allow that to happen. 9 years goes by and Abby's back in the US. She's got a stellar job and a baby, or a child now. We are cursed with witnessing some of Michael's playboy attitude post Abby. Unfortunately, we are then given several sex scenes between Michael and random women. Graphic sex scenes that we didn't need. You could just say that he's a playboy, that he decided that work was more important than having like any kind of relationship, and then he just puts his dick into anything. We didn't need the graphic scenes, but we were given them. You're welcome. Michael then manages, like, through his super important job, ends up having to go to Los Angeles, where Abby is. Both of them are unaware. And Abby is set up to be his personal assistant. She doesn't know who he is because every email that he sent to her, he just signs as M. Although, what was his email address that, like, it was through a work email? What was his work email that she didn't realize that was who he was? And also, he doesn't know who his new personal assistant is because he's just a piece of shit and doesn't like check. Abby goes to pick him up from the airport. Her daughter's with her because the babysitter fell through, and she realizes it's him, and she just ditches him at the airport. So then Michael decides that he's going to go on a rampage, get her fired, which he does successfully because he's a piece of shit. And then because he can't find anybody suitable to be his personal assistant, he then demands that she comes back and works for him, to the point that he chases her down at her new, shittier job. And when she says, no, I'm not going to work for you, he then pays off her current boss to fire her and basically blackmail her into working for him. He does not know that he has a child at this point, thankfully, because my God. But anyways, they go through this whole like toxic work environment where she either doesn't listen to his demands or purposefully misinterprets them. He, keeps her late. Like it's just a toxic work environment that they just are willingly in for each other. I don't know. When he finally finds out that he has a kid, and lo and behold, he takes off again because this man doesn't know how to stick around and have a fucking conversation. Anyways, Michael just consistently ran. Like, anytime there was any kind of like concern, anytime he had like any like, oh my God, it's getting serious, he just took off. So fuck Michael. To be honest with you, like the problem I had with this book was solely based on the characters. The pacing was good. The writing was decent. I hated the characters and I suffered through it. So That wrapped up Wednesday. On Thursday, I read Within Fields and Flowers by Elizabeth Rose. This started off pretty sweet and cozy as far as like a little small town second chance romance goes. I really was enjoying it right up until the point that they started having physical relations. When they started having sex, it got weird because this was not the dynamic before. Like I said, sweet, cozy. These two were coming together. They like cleared up all the miscommunication that they had before. All of a sudden they start having sex, and Dallas, the male main character, demands mid-sex that Charlotte, the female main character, refer to him as sir while they're having sex. This is new. Like, Charlotte admits that's new to her. Where the fuck did this come from? And all I'm like is, girl, you're asking me? I needed a little bit of a slower burn. It just, everything like felt too fast. My biggest beef with this was that when they first had sex, they did not use a condom. Charlotte had been celibate for the 8 years that they were separated. Dallas claimed the same thing. A few days later, lo and behold, Dallas had lied, and he had slept with somebody in that 8-year period. One time, it was only one person he had slept with somebody. But I'm sorry, I don't care if you're clean. You lied. So fucking gross. Like, that was such like a break in, like a breach in trust. Like, I don't think I would ever be able to sleep with the man again. I certainly wouldn't be able to maintain a relationship if he lied to me in the middle of that. And then the entire thing is just a complete just case of miscommunication. At no point did they actually have like real conversations face to face, like without there being a fight before, like a major fight. On Thursday, I also read The Spy by A. Rivers. This was also one of those books where I'm just like, you know what? I think I'm done with this author. A. Rivers has been kind of middle of the road for me, and this kind of cemented it that I was like, you know, I don't really feel like buying the ebooks that I know I'm not going to really like love. This is also, I guess, a hate to love situation, although where? Fiona disliked Zeke. I mean, and I get that because he constantly called her Fifi, which is like the most obvious name for a fucking poodle anybody could ever say. And he was confused, like, oh, Fifi's a dog's name? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, how fucking dense? Like, do authors think that we're stupid? There's just no chemistry. There was no build up to anything. They went from basically being like Fiona disliking Zeke constantly flirting with her, like it was HR kind of thing. And then they kind of went to like, we can get along kind of work co-workers to sleeping with each other. Out of nowhere. Just nothing about this book kept me interested for more than like 5 to 10 minutes at a time. And if it's going to be that short of a book, I should be able to stay interested through start to finish. So that wrapped up Thursday. On Friday, I read Swagger and Sass by Autumn Jones Lake. This being a happily for now novella, this is kind of like the prequel to another book in the Lost Kings MC series. Now, this novella we're told that it could be read as a standalone, which is great. It can. But it's a prequel to the 16th book in the series. And the series needs to be read in order because it's a serial plotline. No fucking way, first of all, that I'm going to commit to a series that is over 20 books long. No way am I going to commit to the 16th book when the prequel novella I rated 1 star. Honest with you, it was too long. This felt like it should have been a prologue to that 16th book. I just had so much problems with the love song that Shelby, our female main character, wrote and sang for Rooster, our main male character, less than 24 hours after they met. And this was like full-on love song. Like, ma'am. It's less than 200 pages. If you like insta-love, heavy smut, and kind of run-of-the-mill characters, like, you know, nothing really stood out, then this is for you. And I would say, like, try and commit to that series. But to be honest with you, not for me. There's far too many books on my TBR that I'm more interested in than starting a series this long with what I'm assuming will be very middle-of-the-road payout. On Friday, I also read Bleed for Me by Reverie Hargrove. This is also a novella. It is a paranormal romance vampire edition. This is about as run-of-the-mill paranormal romance as you can get. There's vampires, fated mates, abusive ex-boyfriends, you know, just blam, blam, blam. Although the abusive ex-boyfriend seemed to be like only there to drive the plot or the FMC, towards accepting the mates situation. I enjoyed this for what it was. The writing is fairly decent. The characters are meh. The problem I had was with the way the pacing worked. Like, everything felt very stuttered in. There was no like real good flow through the storyline. It felt like we jumped from this event happening to this event happening to this event happening with no real feeling of building, of any suspense, of any like working towards a relationship and a plot. And because of that weird pacing, the spice scenes, the smut just kind of felt really one-dimensional, because there didn't feel like there was any real chemistry between Lev, our main male character who's a vampire, and Coral, who is his fated human mate. On Saturday, I finished Pretty Things on Shelves by Maggie and Landon Gates. This is a contemporary romance between two characters who grew up in a high control religious society. Call it a cult. I know the authors didn't really want to call it a cult, but I think that was more of them trying to be a little bit softer about it. But they came from a cult. It's a very patriarchal cult. Women are property, and they are lowest on the importance scale, and men are, you know, the providers, the protectors, and the pieces of shit. When I read this, I did not realize that my own religious trauma was so embedded within me. My own trauma with religion and purity culture in general. There is trigger warnings. The authors are very clear that this is what the book is about. This is a very centered focus on the book. I was not expecting it. I was not expecting to be as affected as I was, but I was. And so that was kind of hard for me to get through. I really enjoyed the story. I loved the dynamic between our main characters, Blair and Caleb, because you could see that they still loved each other. They still cared about each other. And it was very apparent that their relationship originally didn't fall apart for anything other than that they grew up. And they grew apart because they weren't sure how to deal with growing up as different people. They were raised in a very high control environment, and they were told that this is how it needs to be. This is what you need to do. And when they finally broke free from that, it was they were left kind of to flounder. And unfortunately, instead of floundering together, they floundered apart. I enjoyed the fact that they were able to come together. I liked the way that they did come together. It felt authentic. It felt really well written. I truly only had one issue with it, and I will always have this issue. But when they were apart, our female main character, Blair, stays celibate. She goes on a couple of dates, but nobody is Caleb. Like, that was the only man that she had ever been with. And she didn't feel comfortable being with anybody else. She hadn't worked through that. Caleb, on the other hand, while he doesn't like go full playboy, he does have sexual experiences outside, like after the divorce. He has one like immediately after the divorce that he regrets because he wasn't over his marriage. And then he has one later on, and that woman basically teaches him how to have sex. And part of me is just like, why do we have so much, like, why is there such a disparity between, like, women are expected to be celibate when in these second chance romances while the men can just go out and just fuck whatever? It really bothers me that that's kind of like the norm with these kinds of romances. I would rather have it the other way. Either both be celibate or let the woman experience something while the man stays celibate. Like, have some pining on the man's side while the woman is over here, like, actually enjoying herself. But overall, I think it was wonderfully written. I really love Maggie Gates' writing. I think that she did a really good job of showing that high control religious environment while also, like, showing that while this is wrong, it's clearly a wrong way of thinking. Understandable when you get caught up in that because that's how you're raised. It's hard to break free. But if you do, it's okay to still be kind of hung up on some things. I think anybody that grew up in a religious household is going to be a little hung up on some things. It was a great way to wrap up the week. That overall was a little bit of a mediocre kind of week as far as reading goes. Like I said, I gave Sunlight by Devney Perry 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. I do want to warn anybody that my rating system is a little bit lax. If it's something that I think about after I finished it and I really enjoyed it, it's going to get a 5 star from me. So with that being said, Sunlight got 5 stars and Pretty Things on Shelves got 4 stars. I'm hoping that this coming week is going to be better, but at this point, I'm letting book talk basically choose what I read, and so far it's not looking good for me. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoy hearing my reviews and you want more of it, feel free to like and subscribe. I will be posting at least once a week with just my little rant reviews of what I read in the week. But anyways, I'll catch you in a week.